Hi guys, thank you so much for joining. I am so excited to have absolutely each and one of you here. It is so good to have you. Andre, I see you. Thank you for joining. Feel free to drop your names in the chat and where you're tuning in from. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrington, and I am a talk show host, a mental health advocate, an author, a certified development trainer, and I am your host for tonight. So welcome to Black Men Speak Up. Believe it or not, this is coming up on a year that we have been doing Black Men Speak Up. So today is really special that we can come together month after month, even though it's during a challenging time, to have these conversations. So Black Men Speak Up is organized by Roots Community Services, and they are a nonprofit organization located in the region of Peel, and they have different programs and services to help inspire and encourage people of mostly the Black and African and Caribbean community. And so what I'm going to do before we even start is I'm going to just go over some guidelines. So I know that we are the most awesome community here. We always follow guidelines. We are always very structured, but just in case we forget some of the guidelines, I'm going to take a moment and go over them. So we want to make sure that our mics are always kept on mute. Please remember this session is being recorded. Feel free to have your videos on. I absolutely love when our videos are on. That's my favorite part. I love seeing your faces. However, if you don't feel comfortable, it is not mandatory, but I totally love it when you do. Some of the content sometimes can be somewhat triggering to some. So we'll be mindful of that. If you do have emotions that maybe come up that might feel a little bit uncomfortable or you want to discuss, and you're a man who identifies as Black, we have Shane, the counselor, who is the clinical lead and leads Black Men Speak Up, and his phone number is there at your disposal, and that is complimentary for men who identify as Black. And so also, as we're doing that and we're going over triggering content, I want to remind us that I want to encourage you, as much as we want to be helpful, we don't want to counsel the other participants or the panelists. We have Shane there for that. So as much as we want to be helpful to the panelists, please do not give them any type of advice. You are more than welcome to give them support, but not any clinical advice. Also, please refrain from putting any links in the chat that you find helpful. I know we all want to be helpful, but no external links. And also, my ladies in the house, how much I love my women. I love women so much. Tonight, I'm just going to ask us women to keep it a little bit quieter than usual. So this is a Black men's panel, and it's their time to speak. As we all know, Black men don't often have a platform where they could be safe and feel safe. So ladies, if we could let the men have their voice tonight. If you do want to comment in the chat, please do, as long as it is supportive and respectful. And again, no counseling. And also, remember that if I do ask for someone to participate on the mic, it's for the men. That being said, let's get this started. Today's topic is September 10th, which is my birthday, is also Suicide Awareness Prevention Day. And every year on my birthday, as much as I'm celebrating, I always want to be mindful of being a mental health advocate that Suicide Prevention Day is really important. It's an important day to recognize. During the pandemic, suicide rates have increased. And I know it's a subject that we often don't like to talk about. It's a little bit taboo, especially in the Black community. However, it is very prevalent, especially in the pandemic, and especially for men. And I know it sounds like sometimes it's a gender issue, it's women, but I'm going to bring up a few stats, and we're going to go over some of the statistics that Canadian men or Black men face. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but males account for more than 75. I want you to take that in. 75% of the suicides in Canada. So if we do the math, 70 men each week take their own lives. 70 men each week, 10 men a day. 10 men today took their own life. Males are 4 times more likely to commit suicide more than women. During the pandemic, 30% of males in relationships admitted that they were more likely to be the perpetrators of abuse. We're in the house, there's a lot of extra pressures, unemployment, finances, relationships in the marriage. And something that I really want to touch on today is sometimes it can be reverse. Oftentimes it's reverse. 27% of men said they're the victims of abuse during the pandemic. There's been relationships where their partner or their wife have brought on some verbal abuse, physical abuse due to her stresses as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up a short clip, just a 4-minute clip of a Black man who's going to share a little bit of his story. And so that we could have an idea of why Black men don't talk about mental health. And then what we're going to do is have a group conversation on how we can get that conversation started. Everyone good? Awesome, let's watch that video.
When I was younger, I had a lot of rage, and I would explode with anger. And for a lot of men, anger is really depression in disguise. And I get angry every day at lots of things. And I think the weights help me have a place to let out that anger in a healthy way. It doesn't eliminate the depression, but it makes it better, you know? My mental health issues started when I was younger, and they manifested, I guess, as behavior problems. Basically, I was expelled from 3 schools because of my angry, raging outbursts. And for me, it was about power. When I felt threatened, I would feel the need to throw a desk at a teacher and try to kill her because that made me feel powerful. I really still struggle with that to this day. I don't throw desks or try to hit people anymore, but I struggle with a lot of power issues. In 2011, I had a breakdown and I was in New York City. I was becoming suicidal. I was angry. I was having relationship problems. It was bad. And I remember saying to myself that I don't want to die. You know, I don't want to die. And I knew that if I didn't address this stuff for the rest of my life in a proactive way, I was going to die. Or I was going to get locked up in jail for doing something because I didn't care when I was angry. And so I made it a point to make a commitment, a promise to myself that I'm going to go to therapy the rest of my life. And I'm not going to stop. Even if I appear fine and everything's cool, I'm not going to stop. And the other commitment I made was that I'm going to open my mouth and talk about it and not shut up about it. Well, my name is Mike Vini, and I've got mental health issues. I don't usually use the term mental illness. That's my own choice. I just say mental health challenges. That's the word I feel comfortable with. As a child, I was hospitalized 3 times in a psychiatric hospital. I was expelled from 3 schools for behavior problems. I harmed myself, and I tried to attempt suicide at age 10. When you have an issue and you don't talk about it, you give the issue power. And I wanted to take the power back. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 5 people admit to having a mental illness. That only takes into account those people that admitted it. Mental illness is an asset because it taught me how to connect with people. Mental illness is an asset because it gave me my musical talent. And I'm not alone. There's other people who have experienced the same thing I have. I don't actually want to be a speaker. I just care about people not dying, because so many people are dying because they're not addressing these issues. So I'm there to be disruptive until we see no more suicides. I think men in general are struggling to find what healthy masculinity is. I mean, what is it? For me, I also grew up in an environment where a tough guy was like a thug, or someone that was always in a fight or causing trouble. So I think men in general are struggling to find what healthy masculinity is. I mean, what is it? I'm gonna lighten up that weight a little. I just had to lower the weight right there. And for a moment I felt like less of a man because I had to lower that weight. And I just realized that something felt disappointed within me. And I think that's a lot of my thing. I want to feel like a real man, and I struggle with that. I really do.
I have my amazing friend, really close friend, Carlos, here with me. Carlos, are you here with me?
Yes, I am. And thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how vital it is to have this space. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for the conversations that you and I have all the time about what we just heard on that video. Can you share with us, in your opinion, do you agree with what he was sharing?
I do. And unfortunately, I can relate. Being a Black man, when you're growing up, you're taught that you're not allowed to have any emotions. And the only emotion that you are allowed to have, if you are allowed to have emotions, is just anger. So you're not really allowed to express yourself. And then carrying that into relationships with women gets very frustrating, especially when you're struggling to communicate how you're feeling, especially after years of being conditioned not to express yourself. And I feel like for myself, one of the negative effects of it is that the women that you may date can take advantage of you. So because of the fact that you struggle with advocating for yourself or expressing yourself when you're struggling with something, with my experience, I have had women that have gone ahead and have made it even harder for me to go ahead and communicate my experiences. And for me, because of the fact that I was just losing control over my life, that's when I got to a point where I wanted to go ahead and take my life. And that actually happened back in 2018. To give context, I was going through what felt like a divorce with my wife. We were fighting all the time. And part of the reason, one of the root causes to our issues was I wasn't feel like I was being prioritized, and I didn't feel like I was enough for her. I had injured myself at work, and because I had injured myself, I wasn't able to work the same amount of overtime that I was working the year. And I was unable to go ahead and look after the kids the way that I was looking after them. So I needed some extra support with that. But because of the fact that she was prioritizing, getting out of debt and, buying a house, she didn't feel like she could take the time to focus on taking care of me and helping me get better so that eventually we can just do everything together as a team. So I thought that, this relationship isn't working out. And I had decided that, I want us to get a divorce. She didn't take the divorce well. For me wanting to have a divorce well, she actually became quite petty and said that she was going to take the kids away from me. And I was already paying child support from a previous relationship. And with that relationship, I was trying to establish boundaries because I had anticipated that my relationship with my wife was coming to an end. And I just wanted to go ahead and just like receive access to my children. My ex was giving me a hard time. I didn't feel like I had a say with her. And I felt like I wasn't having a say in my current relationship with my wife at the time. And then I was in Vegas with my friends. And this was supposed to be like my vacation. I was there for 3 days, supposed to be my vacation. And during the whole time, they were just like messaging me and just like, just saying just really mean things and horrible things to me and just threatening to take my kids away from me. And I was like, you know what? Between the lack of control that I have at work, the lack of control that I have in my personal life, and the lack of control that I have between like my children, because it was getting to a point when they were saying that I was forced to continue to work and earn a certain amount of money. Otherwise, like the government would just garnish my wages regardless. So anyway, so then I just decided that, you know what, I'm not going to be a slave to these women through my children anymore. I'm not going to be happy. And that's when I had actually planned my suicide. I had planned to rent a garage, a storage garage, and just have my car in there and just do it through carbon monoxide. And for me, it was just about like releasing myself from the grip that they had on me, because I just felt like I didn't have any control. So I totally understand what Mike, I believe his name, was saying in regards to feeling powerless and just wanting to escape that power and just want to free yourself, because I felt that way at that time.
You know, thank you for sharing that, Carlos, because there was a lot in there. And what I picked up on is when we were talking about women having an effect on men. And did you ever feel weak that it was women that were having that effect? Do you know what I'm saying with you? Like the fact that it was women that were controlling you, did that make you feel even weaker? The fact that it would be females?
It did. It did make me feel even weaker. And the thing is, I didn't even have an outlet. I didn't have a friend that I can go ahead and talk to, because if I were to go ahead and talk to my guy friends and tell them that, you know, my ex is giving me a hard time, I'm going through a divorce with my wife right now. They're both basically plotting against me to just, you know, make my life a living hell. And I'm thinking about just like ending my life because I don't want to live this way. Yeah, you definitely feel 100% weak because you don't really have like many choices. I was at a point where my life was being dictated by my children. So I had to work a certain job in order to provide for my children because of their mothers. Mm. Right.
And another question I have is the fact that you planned your suicide. To me, oftentimes we assume it's spontaneous, it's erratic, it's not thought out. The fact that you planned it, was there ever a time during the plan that you felt, how am I trying to pose my question? Was it a sense of control when you were trying to plan it? Because you said you had no control in other ways. So was the planning of it the feeling of this, at least I have control of?
Yes, the planning was actually, it was like a really nice high, because for me, I was able to I just had control over the end of my life. That was the one thing I had control over. And like to my wife and my ex at the time, I was like, you know, you guys would just have like the life insurance money, and then that's between the kids, but everything else, I don't have to worry about that. And the only reason why I chose not to actually end my life was because one of my female friends had actually connected myself to my father, because my father had died when I was 3 years old, and I was raised without a father. And she said that if I go ahead and take my life while my son is as young as he is, he's going to end up growing without a father. So that's the only thing that really made me like change it, was because I thought about like my son. But as far as the feeling of feeling like trapped, like that feeling, like it took some time for me to go ahead and like change my perspective and then really like do the work through therapy. I actually do therapy with Roots. Shane's actually my counselor, and Shane has very much helped me just work through some things, understanding my capacity, holding people accountable, and establishing like healthy boundaries, because that was something that I was struggling with, was establishing healthy boundaries, and I would often avoid, because there just wasn't like a clear way. But I mean, that's the benefit of therapy, is they help you find the answers, and I can't thank Shane enough.
Mm. That's what I love about Shane too. He's like literally a lifesaver.
Yeah.
He's literally a lifesaver. My last question for you is, if there's someone on the line listening right now and they're thinking, you know what, that's great that Carlos was able to get the help, but I'm still really afraid to be judged, would there be a piece of advice that you would have for him as a Black man?
Being judged. I would say the best space or the safest space is to go through therapy, because you're one-on-one with someone where it's 100% confidential. You don't have to tell anyone anything outside of that room. And it helps just have someone, you don't have to go ahead and explain or tell them everything all at once. Sometimes it's just good to have someone that you can vent to. So where you can just kind of process your emotions or the things that are going on, and then just kind of strategize how you're going to go ahead and deal with your situation. So I would just say that as far as judgment, the only judgment would come from like outside, but like for your first time, you can just go through therapy. And nowadays I'm finding that more people are going through therapy. So I feel like it's becoming like less judgmental. Like a lot of my female friends who like hear that I'm going through therapy or that I'm doing through therapy, they're like, honestly, I'm happy to hear like a Black man going through therapy. So fellas, I think you guys should definitely check it out.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You should see the chat, just everyone saying, thanks for sharing. Jonathan saying that, Andre. Carlos, that's why I love you and admire you and love spending time with you. It's because of your openness, your vulnerability, your authenticity, your bravery, your honesty, just everything about you. Thank you for making tonight, for making people more aware and for sharing your story. I'm a firm believer that sharing stories is a part of not only your healing, but helping the community heal as a whole. So thank you. I love you. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks.
Yeah. Tonight is all about having a conversation. And usually, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, growing up, it was uncomfortable to have these types of conversations. But what I want to do tonight is to make the conversation, normalize it. It's a normal conversation where it's not awkward. And I know from the Black community, it's been swept under the rug with some of our parents or even today, but let's normalize that today. So speaking of normalizing, I have my amazing friend, Bryson, all the way from Atlanta, who's going to continue normalizing this conversation with me. Bryson, are you here with me today?
I'm here, Karen. Thank you for having me.
I just love when we spend time together. Thank you so much, Bryson, for our friendship and all the conversations that we have. We talk all the time, so openly. And if we can continue that conversation here in front of the audience. Today, we were talking about Black men and suicide. And is there anything in that video that resonated with you? Do you agree with what he was saying?
Yes, actually, I agree with most of what he was saying. When he talked about being a child with a lot of anger issues and things like that, that was something that I actually struggled with as well. Growing up in Syracuse, New York, I was raised by my grandparents. So my grandfather, he wasn't really one to really express his emotions. And when he did, it was always like catastrophic, like he would blow up. And then my grandmother, on the other hand, she would say how she felt, but in her saying how she felt, it would take her a while to get there, but also she would eventually blow up as well. So that was the form of communication that I eventually took into my adulthood. Anytime something bothered me, I didn't bother to address it. I'd just blow up because it was stockpile on top of things, on top of things, on top of things, on top of things. Now, I had so many different childhood traumas that contributed to the stockpile. And that went from rejection to seclusion to abuse to, I mean, you name it, it just seemed like it happened. So what really led me to commit suicide was I had just graduated from college. My grandmother passed of cancer. I was there with her through that process. She was what I knew to be my support system. After not knowing how to deal with my struggles, what had happened to me and so on, I came home from, I just came home one day. I didn't have a job. I had graduated from college. Things were rough. The roommates that I had, they moved out. They had to go, live their lives and so on. I was sleeping on a friend's sofa. I eventually ended up getting my own place after being at odds with my mom. And I walked in one day and I was just over it. So I took 1,000 milligrams of medication with some Moscato. I laid on the floor. I was in and out of consciousness. And in me being in and out of consciousness, I just remember before everything went black, I said, well, Lord, if you want me here, allow me to wake up from this. And so I woke up the next day. When I woke up, I had a splitting headache, but I was on the floor and the carpet was soaked. It was soaked with sweat. So I then said, all right, well, Lord, you had me wake up. So obviously I'm here for a reason. So help me figure out what to do. So when I did that, what came to me was that I needed to go to counseling and start that and talking about how I was feeling and so on. Initially, I told my family, the first question that I got was, well, are you crazy? That was the first question that I got. And then, there was a laugh behind that. And then, Black families, what goes on in this house stays in this house. You don't go talk to anybody else about your issues. But the great thing is I'm glad that I still decided to go have conversation outside of my home with a licensed practitioner. Me doing that really set me free in so many different ways. And as the gentleman said before me, I learned how to set boundaries. I learned how to express my emotions. I learned how to be present without allowing the present to affect me, if that makes any sense.
No, I get that. I get that. And you know what? You said a lot of things in there. First of all, no judgment, Bryson. When you and I talk, there's no judgment.
Yeah.
But how did you know to put the pills with the Moscato? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it like when Carlos was talking, is it planned? You're like, okay, I know this will take my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it thought out? Did you think it out?
Well, to be honest, that was the second attempt. The first attempt, I was a teenager. Both scenarios, well, with the first scenario, no, it wasn't thought out at all. The second scenario, I had just had enough, honestly. And it was the most random thought. The thought was, well, you have some pills in there. And then the second thought was, why don't you just take it with the alcohol that's in the fridge? Like, you want out, so why not just go ahead and do it? Like, that was the process. And then the conversation with myself was, you know what? I'm tired. I do want out. Life has been hard. I'm over it. That was the conversation. And so that led me down the path. And again, like I told you, the support system that I knew was no longer here. So the person that I would have gone to have conversation was now 6 feet under. And even in watching that whole process, when she was going through cancer and the transition and all of that, that second time around when they came back and they told her that she was no longer in remission, I knew the second time that she wasn't going to make it. It's just something that I knew. But it was hard for me to accept it, because when she died, being the matriarch of the family just went up in shambles. Like it was a mess.
And and thank you for sharing that. I saw someone in the chat say it's very typical of Black families to keep it under the rug, right? Like what happens in the home stays in the home.
Yep.
Did you ever, when you said also that they said that are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
How did that make you feel when they said that? Like, were you offended? Were you embarrassed? Did you lash back out at them? Did you subconsciously agree with them? Like, hey, maybe I am?
All of the above, Karen.
When in doubt, go with option D. All of it.
It literally was all of the above. The person that I told that to, when she responded back and she made that comment, I went silent. And immediately in my mind, I started questioning myself. Well, am I crazy? Well, you did try to take your life, and you don't have the best relationships around you, and you do struggle with depression. And like, it was all of these different scenarios that came into play in that moment. But like I said, I didn't know how to talk about those particular things. I didn't even know I was depressed, if I were to be honest. I didn't know that depression was a thing. Like, I didn't know how to put words on it or to give it a label. It took me going to counseling to really understand what that was, the metrics of it, and how to walk through it.
Gotcha. And also, you said, I've interviewed men all over the world, hundreds of men, and I get the similar answer over and over again. Karen, I didn't necessarily want to die. I just wanted this shit to end. I didn't want to die. I just wanted this shit to end. Did that thought ever pass your mind, that it's not necessarily I want to die, I just want this to go away?
Yes and no. I would say that while I did want it to end, I also wanted relief, if that makes any sense. I wanted relief. At that time, it just felt like it was an uphill battle up until that particular age. And I never really knew why. Like, I never knew why. I never knew why. Again, you know, just shedding some light on a scenario. There was a scenario that I encountered in my childhood with a male. And my grandfather at the time had a heart attack. And he called my mom. At the time, I might have been like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. And me not knowing how to express myself, I went into a panic, because my grandparents were my parents, as far as I knew. They were who I knew. They were my safe haven. So my grandmother also had gotten sick around that time as well. And in me not really knowing what to do, how to manage, I was always the one. I was the oldest grandchild, the biological grandchild. So I was the one that really took care of them. When my grandmother needed medication, I went to go pick that up. When my grandfather needed stuff done, I was over at the house doing it for him. When my grandma, like, whatever the responsibilities were, I felt as if it was my responsibility, and I did it. But this particular day, I was at a relative's home, and me and that relative didn't get along. They're quite a few years older than me. And they came through the door. I heard the briefcase hit the ground, and I heard the door slam. It was a metal door. And they walked over to the window. They pulled the window up. I was sitting at the table eating some chicken soup, because I had thrown up at school that day. Whatever I had thrown up, it was green. So I had gone to the hospital. They told me it was bile from my liver and so on, because I hadn't been eating and all of that. So the person literally threw a chair to the side, dragged me from the table and threw me against the window and said, jump. We were at least about 10 floors up, at least 10 floors up. And they said, well, if you want to kill yourself, just go ahead and do it. Just jump. And at the time, like I said, I had to have been anywhere between 10 and 13. And so I think that led to the seed that was planted. And then I just kind of went from there.
Every time you tell me that story, it's like when you paint the picture, and I think a lot of us on the line, it's like we were in the room with you. Mm-hmm. And even though that may not have happened to us, we can, being that age and to go through that, we may not have endured the same trauma as you, but I do know that a lot of us in our childhood have experienced maybe not that exact situation, but a childhood trauma that we remember every detail of. Mm-hmm. The way you said the metal hit the ground, the door, like the way you tell that story, you remember every detail. Now that you're an adult, do those details sometimes trigger you again?
I would say in moments, not as bad as they used to. I would definitely say in moments. Um, I've gotten a lot better. I've learned what my triggers are. I've become a lot more communicative with what are perceived as my triggers. I communicate that more with people that are close to me rather than people that, you know, are acquaintances or outside of even the acquaintance circle. So they know how to handle me. Like, say, if I do get irritated in the moment, they'll be like, all right, bro, I got you. We're going to go do this. We're going to go do that, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, thanks for, because even when you were speaking of it, I was thinking of people in my family as well. And, you know, growing up, it was dysfunctional as well. And there was moments that I relive. Sometimes they come back. And what I love about you and I is we can catch our triggers.
Yeah.
We catch them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If someone's on the line watching right now, Bryson, who may not have that same awareness, where there's a trigger, a Black man who might get his wife or his partner or his mother does something and triggers him from childhood. Do you have, in your opinion, because I know you're not giving advice, but in your opinion, what would you tell that Black man if he's easily triggered?
The first thing that comes to mind is to be as present as possible and to see past the limitations. Because a lot of times we can be stuck in a situation not realizing, one, our own limitations, but also the limitations of the person that we're interacting with. So in doing that, we have to be able to set boundaries, again, with ourselves and with that other person. At times, it can be very stressful and hard to walk away from someone who is intentionally pushing your buttons, but you still have to think about the consequences of that thereafter. Because if they're up in your face and they're poking at you and they're trying to get you to respond, you know, depending on who you are, if you respond a certain way, you can hurt that person. And in you hurting that person, it can be a permanent situation for that person and for you. So you have to allow yourself to be present in the moment, but also allow yourself to come out of that moment to say, okay, you know what? This is not working for me. This is toxic. Let me remove myself, because clearly this is not where I need to be.
Amen. Amen. And I love how you and I have so many conversations about limitations. Your book, which I love all the time, I read it all the time. Can you share the name of your book?
Sure. It's Be Real, A Guide to Becoming a Better You and Changing Your Life, Short Stories of a Survivor. It's on Amazon. It's a bestseller. Yeah.
I love it. I love the way you're always just, your positivity is infectious. Your inspiration is limitless.
Thank you.
And I just appreciate you in my life. I appreciate your friendship, but I appreciate everything you do for Black men in the community and your inspiring story. Bryson, thank you so much for sharing your story. I can't wait to talk to you again because we talk every day. So right?
We really do.
We'll continue this tomorrow, but I just didn't want our conversations to stay with us. There's something so special about sharing it with the community all the way from Atlanta. So thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you.
I love you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Bryson. Wow. Thank you guys for having this safe space for the panelists. I appreciate each and every one of you, your support on the line and in the chat. It means a lot to me, to the panelists, to everyone else watching. So thank you. And I have one more friend of mine who means so much to me, and he too is going to share a story. And even though, before I get into the next story, there's 3 panelists tonight, but I want you guys to remember, out of there's so many out there that have this story. There's so many out there that have this story. So it just happens that 3 are speaking tonight, but there's someone in your community, in your neighborhood, even in your home, that could be having these feelings. So I just want us to be mindful that it's not just here, but someone besides you is having these same feelings as a Black man. So if you have any indication that maybe a brother of yours or a nephew is kind of holding back lately, just remember to reach out and check in. You never know what they're thinking or feeling. Now I have Rob, my brother in Christ, Rob, all the way from Boston. I love you. Are you sure with me?
I am here, Casey. How are you?
Amazing. I'm so glad that we're doing this together. We do this together every day. We have our convos. We have open conversations, and I'm wanting to take those open conversations here tonight on the big screen. So that being said, we watched a video together. Rob, can I get your take on that?
Yeah, first off, man, thank you so much for taking on such tough topics like this. I think there are so many, as you said, that they're experiencing these things, but they're not talking about it. Men and women, but especially men, men of color who don't have a safe space to talk about things in such a vulnerable way. So big ups to you, Casey, for doing what you do. 12 months. You did it. You did it. The video, I think one of the things that actually, I like what the other gentleman said about the video. One of the things, one of the small pieces that stood out to me about the video was him playing the drums. And why that stuck out was, and he didn't even speak to it, but he spoke to it, where he needed an outlet, right? We often look at just the traditional talk therapy as the only form of therapy, but him beating on the drum was kind of like this silent rhythm of him still communicating the emotion, still expressing himself, but channeling it in a positive way, in an empowering way. And you kind of heard the drum beat kind of as the backdrop to everything that he was saying. Like, you didn't even pick up on this rhythm. And so a marriage between your issues and your outcomes is finding a rhythm that you can heal in. And so for him, he found a space, he found an outlet, and it really helped him to really release all of the stuff that he was experiencing. So I really, really enjoyed that part.
Thanks for sharing that part, because you're right. It was so soothing and healing, the rhythm of the drums. You know, that reminds me of you in a sense, being a Black man and releasing in some way. I know someone likes hot yoga.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which for me, so for those of you who don't know, which is probably all of you, you know, we spoke a little bit about just preparing for this experience. And one of the things that I recently did was I went to a hot yoga class. Now, I was the only brother up in that piece, right? You know, and I'll be honest, Casey, I was having a hard time being quiet. Now, you know me, I'm boisterous, I'm extroverted, and, you know, but I wanted to shout from the mountaintop of what was happening. But it's all cool and quiet. Well, it wasn't cool, it was hot, but it was just dim. Right. So you had to respect the space. But I was experiencing moments of breakthrough, even in there, where I could feel just stress levels falling off. I could feel the anxiety just kind of dripping away. And I had an opportunity to do that this past weekend, and it was liberating. And, you know, granted, I live up in Boston, and, you know, things are way different out here. And a lot of places you might see places people who are doing yoga, they may look more like me, but not around here. And so the fact that I was doing it was also going against the status quo, as simple as that might sound. But I was also making a decision to say, you know what, my personal wellness and health has to be my priority. I have to make a commitment to myself, right, to do things that are going to build me up. And if I'm going to be in a relationship with anybody, it is also for your good that I take care of me, right? So as a father, as a husband, I have to perform. I have to show up. As someone who owns a business, someone who works with young people, I have to show up, right? Now, I don't have the ability to give these individuals my best self if I'm not taking care of myself. And I think we're talking about mental health, and that's what it is. Your commitment to getting things together for you, right? This is your temple. This is your mind. This is your health. You have to make the decision to do it for you. Now, here's the thing about society. Society, especially as a man of color, they're not going to set the stage for you to do it. They're not going to say, hey, sir, are you pausing to take care of yourself? In most cases, they're going to make it harder, right? They're going to add and say, no, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Who are you to be that kind of selfish and, self-centered? And why are you doing all that? Is it, what is all that? So they're not going to set the stage for you to do that, which is why you have to make the decision to say, you know what? I may not have any cheerleaders. I may not have people reminding me, and I may not have people who agree with it, but I'm going to make the decision because this has to matter to me. This has to matter to me.
Amen. This has to matter to me. And what I loved about what you said in there, which is absolutely everything, is when you said, if you want to be in a relationship with me, it's best for me to take care of me. Like, it's to your benefit if you let me do this, because
Right.
I'm a better man for you.
Yeah.
I'm a better man for you. Rob, there's something else that you and I were talking about, and we're talking about on this live tonight, was men having challenges with women.
Mm-hmm.
And I know often it's reversed, where women have safe spaces to talk about, how men are challenging us. But in this space, it's about men where the women are challenging them.
Mm.
Can you share, because I know you and I talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
has there been a time where a woman, I don't even know if I'm going to ask the question, I already know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the time when a woman challenged, I'm not even going to ask if it's a question. Let's talk about the time when a woman has challenged you to lead you to want to end your life.
Mm. Is that the way you asked the other guys? Because I
I
don't
know.
feel like you asked it like that.
I was like, oh, everyone. Okay, Rob, has a woman ever pushed you off the edge? Like,
Nah,
yeah.
I got it. It just was, the way that you just like, oh, I can't dodge that at all. One of the reasons why I've made a commitment to self-care, therapy, the endless pursuit of inner healing. One of the reasons was because for a good chapter of my life, I was failing at all of that. I was married to the mother of my children for some years. And that was a very, very unhealthy relationship. It was toxic, it was abusive, it was disruptive. Vows were broken, covenants went out the window. Everything that you imagine could go wrong did go wrong in that relationship. And, how we treated each other, how she treated me, I'll speak for me. It really pushed me to a place where I no longer recognized who I was. I had no real sense of self-worth. I got to a point where I lost myself, right? Lost myself in the midst of chaos, calamity, and confusion. And here's the thing, we're talking about suicidal ideations or suicide attempts. I don't think people realize that your brain will get to a point where this seems like the logical thing to do. Now, the reason why that's dangerous is because for those of us who are logical people, right, who understand the left side of the brain and live in logic, this makes perfect sense for you, right? So for you, you're just like A, B, C, D. So when you ask the brother, well, why would you drink, champagne along with the pills, right? Because that was a logical thing to do. I needed something to drink. This was going to be my last drink. So let's go out with a bang, right? So the logic part is attacking your mindset, and you like, all right, well, let's do this. And so for me, I got to a point where every aspect of the relationship was failing. I was failing, and that was really what it was. I could not handle the capacity of the failure, right? I could not cope or deal with the consistent pain, right? And so our bodies, we were not created to just endure pain. Like, this is a lie. You're not designed to say your life is just going to be about pain. This is why you are designed. No, no. So when that happens, it's like a short circuit. And so all your mind is going to do is say, I got to turn this off because everything hurts. Everything is painful. You can't trust your thoughts anymore. And so I had gotten to a place in that relationship where I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. I'm no longer serving anybody well, myself, my children at the time, or her. And for me, there was a thought that said, well, you know what? This might be also something that she thinks is okay, because I didn't feel anybody reaching back to try and pull me out.
So let's stay there for a second. Because when you were saying, I don't think this is something that she would have stopped. When you were talking about infidelity, if we can go there just for a bit, because it's common to talk about when men cheat on women or whatnot. In this case, was the infidelity reverse, and why did it hurt so much?
The infidelity, at the time, she had stepped out in the relationship, right? And then I was like, okay, well, let's try to save the relationship. So the only way to save that is for me to step out. So now we're equal, right? That's like a total suicide mission. Like, it does not work like that, right? Broken and broken is not going to produce a whole. And so when I had gotten to a point where I was like, this is just disastrous. And I remember I was in a bathtub, right? To be very transparent, I was in a bathtub and she knew I was in a bathtub. And I was in that bathroom for hours. Now, previously, I had been, because the relationship was so tumultuous, I had been taking pills just to go to sleep because there was no other way to sleep. If I did not medicate, then I was not going to sleep. And in my mind, I said, you know what? Well, how about we just sleep forever, right? And she knew, because later she said, I knew what you were doing in there, right? And it was so casual. It was like, it's like, yeah, I'm like, you did? And so then a part of me, I'm gonna be honest, two things pulled me out of that space. One was, as I was in the bathtub, I look over, I had the pills, they were in the bathtub with me. And I look over and I see my daughter's potty. We were potty training her at the time, a little pink potty. And I look over and I see it. And I was like, all I can think of in this moment is if my daughter comes into the bathroom at night, because she would do that. She would come in the bathroom, go to the bathroom at night, and then she'd go get back in her bed. All I could see was her coming into the bathroom and then seeing her father lifeless in a tub. That was one thought. The other thought, after I pulled myself out of that, was I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of me ending my life.
For
that
you.
was all I had.
Now there's revenge. You're not going to get that out of me. I'm not going to end my life for you. And it's like, you're not getting that out of me.
You're not getting that too. You ain't getting that too. Yeah.
And you know what? I know the room was silent when you said it. And I just want us to sit with that for a second, 1 second. When she knew that you were going to do that and she was okay with it. Can I just ask you honestly? I always ask you honestly. How did that make you feel? If you could describe that feeling of your wife knowing you wanted to take your life and her being okay with it. If you could describe that feeling in one word, what would that word be?
Disappointed. Disappointed. I think I didn't even have enough anger left to be angry. I was disappointed because I felt like out of everything that you might think that I am still a human being who is worth living. And if you can't see that value in me, then there's nothing really else that we need to say or do. So I was disappointed that strangers on the street seem to get more appreciation and decency. The guy who we give 50 cents to standing at the corner because we think that little 50 cents might help him out. I felt lower than that. And I was like, oh, this is how you see me. But you know what else, Karen? As I got to see things over the years, I think there were parts of her that were already dead. So you can't appreciate life if you yourself are dead.
Can you say that again?
You cannot appreciate life, yours or anybody else's, if you are already dead.
That's a word. That's a word. You know, sometimes I wish that you and I could just go on forever. It's like the conversations we have are endless. You inspire me in so many ways. I don't know what my life would be without having a friend like you. Your authenticity, the way you share so openly and charismatically. You're the only one that can make that story so charismatic. But that's what I love about our talks, is that even though the conversations can be heavy or the topic, there's something about the way you say it, you make it normalized. Not the content itself, it's not normal, but having the conversation about it is normal.
No, I think I appreciate you. I love you right back. I think that's what it is, though, the love, right? Like we have to develop a real authentic love for people, right? Even in their worst situations. Like I don't know their experiences. You can always go back to, well, who was wrong, who was more right. But it's like, man, what is it going to cost you to show a little love to somebody? And so for me, it's my desire to go to whatever degree or extent that I can to share that with whoever I can share it with.
And that's why I love you, because of the love that you show me, the way you show the audience, the way you always show up. You know, you never know by just saying I love you to one person that you could save their life that day. That's why I say it to everyone, absolutely every day. You don't know what that I love you means. They may not have heard it from someone else that they're looking for the love, maybe in the wrong places. So Rob, thank you so much for being with me tonight. Thank you so much for being in my life. Thank you much for sharing your story. And thank you so much for sharing your heart.
Thank you so much for having me. Blessings to all of you.
I love you, my friend. I love you. What a night. What a night. What I want to do is I want to, if it's okay, we're going to bring up the slide with maybe some of the content we heard. As inspiring as it was, maybe sometimes it may have evoked an emotion in you that you feel as a Black man that you want to perhaps say, you know what, that's me. That's me. I see some comments that people are saying I could relate, whatnot. Maybe you know a man who is Black who may need this help. We're going to bring up a slide of the phone number that you could reach Shane. What I always suggest is to take a picture of it and keep that in your phone. You never know when you need it. You could share it with a friend. If you're a man who identifies as Black, that therapy is complimentary. And you know what? It's a chat. It's a chat with Shane. That's what I call it. When I call Shane, it's a chat with Shane. There's something about him that just makes everything so much easier. You don't have to have your video on. If you don't want to say your name, if you just want to have a chat, he is there he's there to help. Roots is there to help. Also, what I like to do before I end off is I always like to have a positive affirmation from my book that I wrote called Shame Over. I wrote that book for men, all men of all walks of life. And I like to choose an affirmation that resonates with what we talked about today. So I just want to thank absolutely each and every one of you who has a copy. It is available on Amazon. So if we could bring up the affirmation that I chose for today, which one did I choose? Yes, let me read that out for you guys if that's okay with you. That one is affirmation number 29. I hold a positive mental outlook on me and my life. I ask for help when I need it. It does not make me weak. I ask for help when I need it. It does not make me weak. I just want to remind all of you, especially Black men who are here with us tonight, asking for help doesn't make you weak. Have a positive outlook on your mental health. You matter. Your self-care matters. Your mental health matters. You as a Black man, you matter. So what I would like to do is bring up my website. If any of you need me for any reason or Roots, we are here at your disposal. You can reach me at KarenCarrington.com. Send me an email. If there's something you need, I'm here to assist you. I also want to take a moment and thank the production team for making this such a safe space. This world has become extremely virtual and extremely digital, and without tech and production, it doesn't feel as good. So thank you so much. Thank you, Andre. I thank you for being here. I love you so much. Thank you for being in my life. Absolutely, each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. Randy, thank you for always being here. Wanda, Eugene, oh, I love when you're here. Dr. Errol, Janine, thank you. Clyde, thank you. You have no idea how much I love you. Chris, it was so nice connecting with you today on LinkedIn. I'm so glad that you were here. Everil, all the way from Montreal, I love you. Jonathan, you know exactly how I feel about you. Andrea, thank you for being here. Shane, I see you. Thank you for your unconditional love for everyone in the community. Liz and Candy and Carol, Kendra, I love you. Ricky, all the way from Florida, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us today. Laura and Kristen, thank you so much. Ian, I love the talks that we have all the time. Thank you. Carrie, all the way in Niagara, I love you, girl. Thank you for being here. If I've missed anyone, I just want to make sure I caught everyone. Ricky, thank you. I love what you're saying. The conversation is so rich. Thank you. Without you guys being here, this doesn't happen. Thank you to the guests, to the panelists for your authenticity, but mostly thank you for the community. You have no idea what it means for you guys showing up for Black men and showing that you care. So that's it for tonight. Thank you ever so much for joining Black Men Speak Up.